Hey guys, welcome back to Sabers Forever. I'm John, and this is part 2 of the Darksai V2 and the Dark Saber Blade review. Only this isn't a review. Or maybe it is. You can decide. But basically, back when I got this camera in July, I started filming anything I could, one of them actually being the installation of the Darksai V2. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if people got their hilts empty and then had them installed, and that would lighten the weight or the load a little bit over at Kaizen Sabers. Time just kept getting away from me, and I couldn't figure out a good time to release it. And the other day, the Dark Saber blade came in the mail, and the Darksai V2 was done. So what better time than to just do it now, right? So as part 2 of the video, back in July, before I got my new lens and a microphone and all that stuff, I filmed the installation of this hilt. So I really hope that whoever's interested in learning how to solder proffieboards, or maybe they do want to get one of these empty and it'll just be shipped quicker than having it installed, and you want to try yourself, be my guest. If not, you can always reach out to me. So, without further ado, let's rewind to July, and you can just see how this saber goes together. So most people won't be ordering their Darksai V2 empty. I did just because I like to use specific components. But if you did, you can expect to receive it with 2 tactile switches pre-installed, the chassis, the recharge port, the kill switch, and the all-thread nuts to hold the chassis together. You're going to need a 28mm premium bass speaker. You're going to need a 5.5 and a 6.5 length 440 all-thread, an Allen key to open this up, and a battery. And I am actually using my own stock Custom Works V3 NPXL. I like these just because they're backlit. So, let's take this thing apart. Alright, in order to install our lightsaber, we're going to need to open it up. And in order to do that, we need to back this screw out. So you're going to take your Allen wrench and just spin it counterclockwise. And then you're going to remove the entire handle. It just slides right off like this. This is empty. Put that to the side and remove your Suba. And then you're going to actually remove the switches, which are held in place by these 2 screws. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually test to make sure that the chassis fits with the length of the all-thread cut at the lengths I gave you, which was 5.5 and 6.5 inches long. Dump out your switches, just like that. So the short side of all thread is going on the longer side with the switches. And the longer all thread is going on the shorter side without the switches, so that you get the same length. Just like that. Alright, now with the all thread in, we actually just want to check to make sure that the chassis components all fit in this order. So we have the slot for where the crystal chamber would go if you had gotten it, your battery holder. I'm actually going to use a removable battery for this example, just for assembly purposes to test it. The other side of the battery holder. This piece is just for additional wire storage. You can actually put it, I believe, here or here. And then the actual component that does most of the heavy lifting. So you want your all thread to look like that. You want it to come out about that far. No farther than that. You can even be a little bit shorter. Alright, so now that that fits, let's start soldering some stuff. So I normally like to install a lightsaber from the top down, and I'll run all the components to where the board is going to sit, and then wire up the soundboard last, and then test everything. This install actually makes more sense because of how tight this little section is back here. that we wire up the recharge port and make sure that's fully protected and connected to the kill key, and then make sure we have our positive and our negative running to the board. And then everything else, we're actually going to wire up the Neopixel connector last, because we're going to run all the wires from the soundboard out everywhere to connect to everything. So we're basically going to get the chassis like almost done first. So we're basically building it from the bottom up this time. So let's start doing that. So now that we have the recharge port, I have all these wires, and you're probably like, John, there's only 3 legs. Why do you have 6 wires? That's, yeah, ridiculous. I know, but that's why we're doing this first. So essentially these wires are going to be for the Neopixel connector. This wire is going to be for going from the recharge port to the kill switch, and this wire is actually going to go from the kill switch to the board. Then these 2 just go on the remaining legs. So these all go on one leg. So let's wire these together. You never want to do what's called a Y connection, where you take a wire, let's take this wire, and let's say, oh, I need to connect one end to 2 things. Well, naturally people think, oh, well, there we go, we just connect them, you know, at that point. Well, no. What that risks is actually creating a loop. You may not even be able to see it just by looking at your wire path, but it could just pop up. And if you have enough Y connections, that eventually you're going to get a short, and it's just not advisable. So what do? Well, connect everything where the pads are going to connect. So these 3 wires are all going to go to the positive leg of the recharge port. This is actually going to be on the back side of the chassis. I test fit this already, and it just makes sense for the metal part of the exposed aluminum part of the recharge port to face towards the sound card. It just allows room for the legs. So since I know that, and I know that I want these wires are going to go up, and this is going to be oriented so that that'll be like that, I'm actually going to solder these on this way. I did not tin my iron. That would have been way easier if I had, but that's pretty good. Alright, and I like to pull on the wires to make sure that they actually connected and are not going anywhere. Alright, so that's the positive done. Let's do the negative. Battery negative is always black for me, and board negative is always white. Maybe that seems weird to you guys, but when you do something that long, or when you do something like that for 7 years, you know, you tend to keep doing it. Alright, so that's good, and that's good. Sweet, so this is just going to get fit into the chassis now. Actually, I'm going to apply a little bit of liquid tape. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll let it dry, and I'll come back. I applied some liquid tape, and I tried to do this on video a few times, and I ended up just having to pull it off screen anyways, so I figure I'll just show you the end result. But essentially, you want to make sure that all your wires are going to be running to where they need to. So I know that this is the negative for the soundboard, and this is going to be coming through this side up to the soundboard. And you can see these just run all the way through. So this is right coming through there. So you're basically just running these up to the Neopixel connector. This is for the battery. And now what we're left with is this red wire. Oop, that's the black one. Is this red wire. And what we're going to do is I fed it through where the kill switch is going to be held. And we're going to wire up the kill switch. So this is going to connect to one end, and then it's going to have another end coming out, which is going to lead to the board. So now what we need to do is we need to trim one of the legs. Essentially it's like 3 people, like a love triangle, and the 2 on the outside, the only thing they have in common is the middle leg. So we're going to cut that out and make them a proper couple. And just like that. And now what happens is, since we're only using those 2 legs, this is in the off position right now, and then you connect them by switching it over. And that's how that works. So we're going to wire up the 2 positives to that, and I will be right back. Alright, and I just wanted to specify, because I don't believe I was really clear enough, but the red wire leading from the recharge port is going to get an additional wire split to, well, not split, but it's going to get an additional wire attached as if it was like an out, because the battery needs to be connected to the recharge port. So we're going to add that extra wire on one of these legs, and then the other leg is going to have the soundboard out. So what that means is this leg will, for example, have the out. So right now it would be off. And so this will have the out to the soundboard, and then the middle leg will have both the recharge port wire and then a new wire that's going to exit and connect to the battery. So that way the battery and the recharge port are connected. When this gets turned on, it's giving power to the soundboard. But when it's off, you can charge it and it'll keep the soundboard off. So I wanted to make sure that everyone understood that. And that's exactly what I did here. So you have the recharge port right there, and then your additional wiring and everything, and you have your you're gonna just have to trust me on this, but essentially this is the battery and this is the soundboard. So you have your positive and your negative for your soundboard, your positive to your battery, and then your negative to the battery right here, and then your positives to your quick connect. So we're getting there. Now let's do the speaker. So you're gonna want to be careful because speakers have magnets in them, and if there's any metal debris around here, then it's gonna pick it up on the speaker and you're gonna hear it when it vibrates. It sounds like a crackling sound. So you really want to be careful what you actually put the battery down on. Whatever case it comes in is good enough for me. Either that, or you can use your trusty vise that we used later or earlier in the video. Whatever you feel comfortable with. So this is going to go right in here. I'm pretty sure it's a press fit. I haven't actually tried it yet, so we'll see. We're going to learn together. But we're going to solder 2 wires onto here, and they're going to lead inside and come out here. And then that's going to lead up through here into this area for the soundboard. So we only need 2 wires. I'm using 32 AWG wire, so I'm going to just make this a little bit longer than I need. Cut that. And then a good way to match it is to just do. Alright. And then we're going to tin, and we're going to strip and tin these. I need to turn on my soldering iron. That's a constant problem. Alright, get your helping hands out. Solder this up. And then we're going to tin the speaker plate. So you're going to solder 1 wire here. You're going to solder 1 wire here. And then these, I would just recommend going inward with them, always inward. Same with this one. Okay. Now I'll give these a little twist. And by a little, I mean a lot. And hopefully we can feed this through. There, it's very tight. I want it to go through this side over here because that's where they're going to connect. So, alright, so pulling that through, and then this is going to go just like that. Let's see. Can I push it in without damaging the speaker? I don't believe so. This might not be. Yeah. It kind of works. I'm going to have to definitely glue that in. Yeah. Alright, well, that's what it's going to look like. And I'm just going to apply a little bit of glue. Let's see if I can pop this out. Yep. Right on the edges underneath the speaker. So right there. Right in there. And then that'll be nice and secure, and we're going to move on to the next thing. So here we go. Now that the speaker is in here, we're going to actually move forward with soldering up the remaining wires for the quick connects and the wires for the switches. So when you're soldering the proffieboard, you never want to solder it with the SD card in. It's just a no-no. So make sure you remove that, and then your orientation is going to be with the SD card and the micro USB ports facing the speaker. And then, yeah, I guess just make sure that your SD card, or I'm sorry, that your proffieboard fits dimensionally into the slot. It does. It's a loose fit, so it'll need some double-sided foam tape on that side to hold this in. So let's prep our data line. So let's do that first. So the first thing we're going to want to do is actually cut it short on one side. And this is because we need to put our 470 ohm resistor on here, which I'm getting. And the next thing is we're going to strip these sides. This gets stripped on both sides. So let's strip these together. And then I'll strip this one. And then we're going to tin all this stuff. And you can trim your resistor too. These legs don't need to be this long. Alright. There's more than one way to skin a cat. I hate that saying, but it's very true because the more and more I think about doing this install, I'm like, man, there's so many different ways you can do it. I like this method only because now I know this is all, like where the power is handled is all nice and clean, and I'm not going to have to worry about anything shorting out. While this is a little bit of a pain to think about, if you just keep everything straight, you know, if you do the thing and you do it well and you don't f up, it just works. Alright, so now that we have the data line all set up, we are going to start. I'm thinking, do I really want to start soldering things to the soundboard? Or do I want to do the buttons first? I think I'm just going to keep moving forward with the soundboard. Alright, so get your helping hands. Be very careful about where you grab if you're going to use your helping hands on this, because there's a lot of tiny components that are very delicate. And also try and keep your orientation correct in your head, because when you flip it this way, you know, images, or if you're following wiring diagrams, show down here, and it's easy to think, oh, that's this side now, but really it's over here. So just be careful. The more you do it, the more familiar you'll get with where's safe to grab. I always grab somewhere around the pads, just so I know I'm not grabbing any components by accident. So, alright, so I know that I want to put my 2 negatives right there. So let's do that. Okay, don't mess it up. Alright, didn't mess it up. Good job. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to attach the data line, which is going to go right here. You'll see. It's 2 in from bang, bang, bang. It's the 3rd one in. So we're actually going to, the side with the resistor is going to be on the opposite side of the board. So we're going to strip this, tin it, tin your iron, tin your wire. Set up your helping hands. And don't mess it up. Tin your iron. Alright. Moving on. So now that the soundboard has the negatives and the data line soldered to it, we're going to actually solder up the switches. Now, these are very small, so you're going to want to be very careful, maybe even turn down the temperature of your iron. So I just turned mine from 720-ish degrees to 650, which is about when it stops really being hot. So I'm going to actually just tin these legs a little bit. I'm barely adding any solder. And I haven't snipped the other side yet, because if I mess this up, then I'll get another chance. And the more you the more finicky you get with it, the harder it gets. So just try and one and done it. Alright, so those legs are tinned. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to bridge. These switches only require 2 wires each, and one of the wires between them can be bridged, which is what I'm going to do to make everything cleaner on the soundboard side when we're soldering. So I have 2 wires again, and I'm going to just strip and twist them together. Oh, that's hard. And then tin them, and I'm going to solder the double end onto one of the legs of the buttons. It doesn't matter which button. I'm just going to solder this bad boy right on there. Just like that. Great, that's wonderful. Alright, so now I'm going to solder this onto the other leg of the other button. So I'm going to try and do this as tight as possible, since I know they're just right next to each other in the Saber. Alright, so this leg's going to go right here. That's perfect. And now I'm just going to put the opposite. So I know that I usually like the button that has both the wires. I like to be my positive, or rather my primary button, my power, which I make red. Okay. Well, I've actually installed the buttons. I put a little bit of liquid electrical tape on there. And right now what we're going to do is we're just going to reinforce these wires a little bit with some hot glue. So I let this heat up a little bit. It's starting to feel warm. You don't want it to be hot because these wires are so small, but we're just going to basically inject it along the buttons and then along the top of this chassis part. It may not look pretty, but it's going to get covered up, and I like to know that my stuff's not going to move, because it sucks if all of a sudden your buttons stop working, right? Alright. So once that's all cool, just clear away the little boogies. I hate hot glue for that reason, but it does its job, and it does its job well. And you can always go back and cut at it and make it look nice. Alright, so stuff's going to start getting tricky where we need to actually figure out our wire paths. So I know this needs to go with this piece facing me. This is going to go on here like this, and then these wires are actually going to come through this bottom part right here. If I can get it. Can I get it? I gotta twist these. So it's gonna go through here. And that's gonna go like that. Now, this part we're gonna feed same side through here. This is gonna go on here. And then this is going to continue through here. And then this goes through here, like that. Okay. So now that's pulled through, and I know I'm going to want these two on this side and this one over here with the black, so when it comes to this. So I'm going to do these come through the bottom, and I'll show a close-up of this once it's all pulled through, so you can see the paths. This blue is going to go through here, and then this red's going to follow. Whoops. Red's going to follow over here, and black here, and then all this goes on the all thread. Okay. Alright. And so now all this should look like that coming out the bottom. So you have your ground for your switch, your power switch, your auxiliary switch, and then your positive to the battery and your negative to the battery. Alright, so the next thing is going to be, I've actually run the board, the wires that we soldered through there, and this is just going to all get pulled through, and we're going to try and run this all the way out the front. So just find some decent areas that are still left open, and then run your wires through there, and as long as they make it up here and out the front, and you got enough room to solder this on, then you're good. So I just wanted to show how my weaving is going. It looks like a mess, but essentially I have my switches right here coming out, so I still need to get those through. I have my positives, negatives, and data line fed through, and I have heat shrink in here, and then I still have my negative, positive for the battery, and my negative, positive for the batteries right here. So things are going well. I'm going to get this all tidied up. I still got to send stuff through, but just keep lining those wire paths and following the right ones. The wires are all run through these heat shrink tubes and through the chassis. I have out the front here the wires for the quick connect, and then I have the SD card still loose, but on this side, they're primarily the things that I want to worry about are the actual power. And then on this side, it's going to be the power switch, the ground for both switches. This is the negative for the battery, or to the soundboard. This is the positive to the soundboard. And then this is the speaker, and this blue one down here is the auxiliary. So I'm gonna get all that wired up, and I'll show a little bit on the way. Alright, the soundboard's mostly wired up. I just have the power and the the positive and the negative left. I wired up the auxiliary, which is here. The power, the red wire for the power button went here. This is the ground. This is the data line that we did earlier, and those are the two negatives up here that we did for the quick connect. And then this is the speaker. So the negative, the white one's going to go here, and the red one is going to go here. And then I'm going to wire up the Neopixel quick connect, and then we'll test it. We're almost there. Stay vigilant. Also, I've taken care of the positive here on this side, so I'm actually going to do the negative, and I'll show you how I did that. So we just want this to be tight, and what we're going to do is we're going to snip here, and then we're going to snip a little bit past that on the other one. And make sure you don't snip any other wires, because that could suck. So then we're going to strip this end, and we're going to strip this end. That looks good. And then now I'm going to put some heat shrink on. Actually, you know what? Because the wire is going to heat up, first I'm going to tin it, and then I'll put the heat shrink on, rather than heat it up twice, since we have to heat it up. We have to heat up the wire in order to solder them together anyways, so rather than heating up the heat shrink twice, we'll just do it once. Okay. Now let's put on the heat shrink. It's nice and cool. Ooh, I got a tag on there. Sorry if you can hear the rain outside, it's kind of coming down. Hopefully I don't lose power, because that would suck. Alright, so that's on. Is it? I'm grabbing that. Sausage fingers, people. I got them. And I do little tiny work like this. Okay. There we go. Now you want to make sure that the heat shrink is backed away enough that it's not going to be immediately affected by the heat that you're producing. Ooh, lights are flickering. But you're going to want to be able to grab it still. Alright, let's see if I can do this. I might need to get my helping hands for this. I think I do. Alright, I'll set that up. So the last thing to do is going to be to solder up the power here, and then solder up the actual NPXL. So I already stripped the negative, and I'm going to just tin that. I'm holding the wire upside down to actually try and wick away a little bit of the solder if there's too much, because otherwise you can't get it through this little tiny hole. So yep, just like that, you can't get it through. Okay, so gotta take a little bit more off. There we go. I knew it was going to go through. All right. Alrighty, and then let's do the positive. So I'm just giving myself extra slack because there's plenty of room underneath to pull it through and make sure that it's not going to be in the way. So let's tin this. Make sure that your kill switch is off, otherwise you'll be getting weird noises right now. Yeah. Alright. Okay. That's in. Okay. Now, we could turn it on and hear if it makes noise, but... Oh, you want to hear it, don't you? I know. Me too. Sweet. So finally, we're down to the Neopixel Quick Connect. So what we have to do is... Don't forget to put this on first. So... This has to go over the wires because this has to hold the Neopixel Quick Connect. Also, I would like to note that I did not do a very good job with my length on this end. My reds are like basically right where my resistor would end, and so I'm just going to have funky lengths on the end here. Oh well, but normally I like all these to be the same length. It just keeps it nice and tidy. So... What we're going to do here is, alright, we're going to solder up the two of the positives. So there's a positive here, and a positive here. Then these two pads right here, we're going to solder the two negatives to, and the data line is going to go right to the middle peg. And then this will work. So we're going to tin the pads and then solder the wires. So all the wires are different lengths, but I'm just going to cut these red ones, and then I'm going to trim the black a little bit, and we'll just leave the data line long, which is no problem. And I need to warm up my soldering iron. Yippee-doo. This is already stripped. Okay, cut these. Alright, 700 degrees Fahrenheit should be good. So 10. I like to do opposite pads if I can, since this is all this part of the same positive. Just like these are the same negative. Doesn't matter if they get bridged. And then just make sure that the data line's gonna be able to solder on easy enough. So let's do the data line. Okay. And then we'll do this positive. I'm actually gonna put this one over here. You'll see why. It'll just be cleaner. Okay. Now for the negatives. See if it works.
On directory to SD card not found.
Gotta put the SD card in. Okay. Okay, it's working. You want to pull all your wires in. See how that already kind of does that? Is you want to pull the wires in here with a pair of tweezers until this is flush on the bottom. So I'll get back in 1 sec. So the one other thing that I want to recommend before I close this up is you should hot glue in here to hold the wires so that it'll actually hold the quick connect in here, and it'll also hold the wires. So do that and then pull the wires in here, and then we're going to close it up and I'll give a final demo. All done. And there you have it, the Darksai V2. Alright guys, that does it for this video. I know that at the end here, it just sped along a little bit, so if you have any questions, please ask in the comments. That way everybody else can see how I answered your question. If you liked what you saw and you want to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, I'll see you on the next one, and may the Force be with you.